on a global scale, it is just too little and it's possibly too late. I mean, the chances of us actually keeping global temperatures to below 1.5 degrees Celsius are getting very, very slim, particularly the trajectory we're going on at the moment. So we really need all countries, not just a few, to actually start, doing the right thing or to increase their level of ambition.
Yeah, I've seen now in articles on climate change that more and more they're scrapping 1.5 point Celsius,
Yeah.
and now the new number they keep mentioning is 2 degrees Celsius, which is a huge difference
Yeah.
because we're already seeing these crazy effects of climate's breakdown at 1.2, where we're at now, almost 1.3, right?
Yeah. No, and I think it's really important to maintain that 1.5, and we've got to keep focused on 1.5 because the next number after 1.5 is not 2. The next number after 1.5 is 1.51,
Yeah.
and then putting in place abatement technologies to bring us down to 1.5. Abatement and mitigation and carbon capture and so on. We can't just let go of that target. And the difference between 1.5 and 2 is it might not, it does sound quite a lot to me, but that is like 70 or 80% of reefs being destroyed by coral bleaching and climate change, or 100%. I can't remember what the exact numbers are, but this is what we're talking about. We're talking like all coral reefs wiped out if we go to that two degree limit or 2 degree average global warming. So yeah, we've got to try and keep the debate to 1.5 and not allow it to shift.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it doesn't sound like a lot to most people, but if we go on like this, I read somewhere that Slovenia, which is a country with a proud skiing tradition, my father was a skiing coach. In 2050, the climate is going to be that of southern Spain,
Wow.
you know? And Europe is warming up twice as fast as most of the other continents,
Mm.
which is, I mean, it's beyond
And the
scary. It's
poles
just
even more
insane.
so. I mean, an average temperature of 2 degrees Celsius globally adds up to, I don't know the exact figures, but we're talking like 10 degrees at the poles, on average, hotter temperatures. So vast changes there. And I think really what I always think of when I think of these slight, what seems to be a slight increase in global temperatures, you've got to look at countries like South Sudan, countries that are really dry, really hot. People are really poor. They are barely hanging on under current circumstances. If the summer is getting up to 47 at the moment there, if the summers start
Jesus.
going up to 49, 50, it just becomes unlivable. Like that becomes a critical point at which people cannot survive those temperatures living outside as they do without air conditioning or whatever and sufficient water. So then you start to get massive migration, into other places, and that's when things
Hmm.
really start to go a bit crazy from a global perspective.
Yeah, I'm in Japan right now, where I spent my summer, and the heat waves were just brutal. I spent the entire summer indoors.
Mm.
It's not how I wanted to spend my time, and I just keep the summers are always hot here, but this year it's extremely hot, and I
Mm.
keep getting warnings from the government on my cell phone every day. Stay indoors, stay indoors, stay indoors. And when you go out just to the nearest store for 5 minutes, uh, usually it was 37, 38 degrees, but Google said feels like 43. And I mean, this heat is unbearable already at 37 degrees. I've never experienced anything like this before.
Oh yeah, look, well. See, very interestingly, in Australia, because we've affected by these big global cycles of temperatures. So we've actually had in the south of Australia, anyway, 3 years of cooler, wet weather, which is we have these cycles that happen every so often. So as you mentioned, a couple of years ago, we're at the end of a long dry cycle where we're having temperatures in the mid 40s, even in southern Australia like Melbourne. And then, of course, those massive wildfires that just burnt, vast areas of forest, killed something like 10 billion animals, they estimated, and would have wiped out, some very fragile ecosystems that will just never come back. They're gone. Um, so then we've had this cycle of relatively wet weather, which has been great. But now we're heading into that dry cycle again. And I think a lot of people are very nervous because we think, well, those dry cycles were bad enough pre kind of big effects of climate change, the idea of heading to one of these sort of 9-year droughts where we end up with, those very high temperatures, very little rain over a long period of time in a climate change environment, I think a lot of people are extremely nervous about what that will mean for us. I mean, I think everyone's nervous about what climate change is going to mean for us. And, we don't really know what we're getting into. It's volatile and weather activity.
Mm. If we leave governments on the side, what about people's attitudes? Would you say that they're slowly changing or changing fast? I mean, there was some minor local successes. Yesterday, I think Ecuador voted at the referendum to stop, and most of the people voted for this motion to stop all new drilling for new oil in the Amazon. I know the European Parliament, when was it, a month ago, accepted a bunch of laws for the conservation of nature. Switzerland has had a referendum as well along those lines. Would you say that when people are given the chance, they are aware of the severity of the climate crisis?
Yeah, look, I think by and large, we are seeing increased awareness, and we are seeing a lot of positive attitudes towards change. What worries me though is that, for example, just today, I was reading Twitter, X.
Oh,
and
yes.
yeah, there was a post about something I thought was really positive about climate change. It was saying look at the fires that are currently taking place. I can't remember which country it was. It was just something happening today. I think it was in Canada actually. It was fires again in Canada, and then of course you click on and
The
read the
comments.
responses,
Yeah.
and some of the top responses are I don't even want to repeat them, but they are climate deniers and they are conspiracy people, and you've just got to these people are out there and they vote, and this is the problem that there's a lot of Trump supporters out there, and more than you think probably. So yes, I think there has been a lot of progress in people's attitudes, but there's also been probably maybe even some backsliding in climate change becoming what would you call it, synonymous for them with the evil left wing, liberal, small L liberal, the enemy. Basically, it's become the enemy for some people. And this is really unfortunate that it's become so politicized, and that science itself has failed to convince some people of that it is telling the truth. People think that science is also a conspiracy because they don't understand it. So I think it's a matter of taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I think we are making progress, but we've got a lot of people to bring with us that don't want to come. And politicians are in that position where they need to sort of balance out these different parts of the population, and make decisions that are acceptable to the broad majority. And hopefully that's going to change. Maybe it's generational change, maybe it's socioeconomic change, maybe it's education. Hopefully we're moving in the right direction. That's all I can say.
Yeah, Twitter is just a cesspool. It's depressing to go on there. I follow a lot of climate scientists, and under every post that they make, like you said, top comments are always like, they're politicizing the weather.
Yeah.
Like, what does that even mean? And then this person who wrote that looks in his backyard and the forest is literally burning around him. Like, a lot of Canadians like, it's arson.
Yeah.
Australia, I've read the same. It's just like, really 400 arsonists at the same time working like a group of ninjas to just
Well, I mean, the
create this
implication
massive conspiracy. Come
I
on.
know the implication I saw from this Twitter article I just read was that the climate people were the arsonists because it's supporting their claim that climate change is happening. It's like, well, that's pretty convoluted logic, right? I mean, we're burning down our forests that we find so precious just to prove our point.
All right. Yeah, I heard
Yeah,
that one before when
so
Bolsonaro was president of Brazil, and there were these massive wildfires happening in the Amazon, and he said Leonardo DiCaprio is to blame because he's supporting a lot of these, environmentalist organizations, and they were the arsonists to prove
right.
his point
Okay.
that
So this
climate
isn't
change
a
is
new
happening.
theory. This is an old theory that just gets called
It's
out
quite
every time there's a big
complicated.
fire.
Yeah. Alrighty. First of all, just a massive, massive thank you to my patrons, aka producers, Taichi, Veronica, Mila, and Carmen. You absolute legends are the reason why this podcast will keep going. For the rest of you, if you enjoyed listening to the what we back in the Slavlands call the program, please do consider following on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, subscribing on YouTube, and of course, becoming a patron on Patreon. Thanks.